joining us for our webinar this afternoon. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules. I'm going to walk through a little bit about Constellation Software. We're a leading provider of software and services that acquires, nurtures, and grows industry-specific software businesses, providing specialized mission-critical solutions for every industry, from everything from agriculture and food to drinks and utilities and municipalities. We cover quite a bit of space. Servicing over 125,000 customers in 100 countries, 6 operating groups, and over 20,000 employees, producing about $3 billion annually. The Constellation Dealer Group, which IDS is part of, is a wholly owned subsidiary of Constellation Software Incorporated. We've been operating as a group of companies since 2011, providing market-leading software products to 6,000 plus dealerships. And those dealers are in everywhere from the automotive, agricultural, outdoor power equipment, golf cars, power sports, marine, and of course RV. We're the driving force behind major industry benchmarks. We have the outdoor power equipment and tractor trends reports. We have repair event cycle time reports for RV and marine, and soon an F9 dashboard for RV and marine dealers. We help dealers succeed. Over half the top 50 RV and marine dealers in the U.S. use our software, use IDS, and we're industry pioneers. We're the first to offer parts integrations with distributors, OEM integrations for warranty processing, first to offer hosted dealer software solutions, and a fully integrated CRM, first to offer document integrations for email delivery and cross-platform mobile apps. And we were the first to offer national repair event cycle time reporting. We hire industry experts. We hire the industry veterans to provide support and training, experts who fully understand your challenges. As one of those industry veterans, I come with 30 years of experience in the industry, and for the better part of the last 2 decades, have been providing training, consulting, and analytic services to thousands of dealerships across the nation. And I continue to work to educate dealers on adopting the data-driven decision model. I created IDS's Repair Event Cycle Time Report, or RECT, used by RV and marine dealers to improve their service experience for their customers. I created Ideal's Dealer Insight Report and Trends, or DIRT, so dealers in the OPE and tractor and power sports industries can better visualize their results compared to the nation. Joining us in a bit later today, Jason Krantz, CEO of Strategy Titans, an RVDA partner that provides market forecast and local market solutions for RV dealers across the nation, is going to provide a review of market share basics. But first, I want to discuss why data is important and how to use it at your dealership. Data is a very broad term that encompasses every part of your business, so I'm going to speak in very broad strokes. Webster defines data as factual information used as a basis for reasoning, discussion, or calculation, and data mining has been defined as the extraction of implicit, previously unknown, and potentially useful information from data. You have a ton of data. Your data is like gold. We need to mine it often. Why data is so important? You've all heard the phrase, you can't monitor what you don't measure, and don't expect what you can't inspect. If you can't inspect it, you can't track it. If you can't track it, there is no accountability. No accountability also means there's no motivation, and no motivation means no reason to change. Knowing where you are and where you've been will help you determine where you're going. Good data allows you to establish baseline, benchmarks, and goals to keep you moving forward. Trend analysis can improve your business by helping you identify areas that are doing well as areas that are not. In this way, trend analysis provides valuable evidence to help make better informed decisions. Performance evaluations is all about the data. Data allows for those baselines and benchmarkings to track an employee's performance, a department performance, and even the dealership's performance. How to use that data though? Track your results in key areas. Set key performance indicators and goals for your business in total sales, gross margin, revenue per work order, recovery rates, tech efficiencies, etc. Data can help you determine if a promotion's been effective. Review data from previous years to determine if the current promotion is actually moving the needle. Review effectiveness of any new policies and procedures. If you've changed the intake process or service, if you have the data, you can monitor to confirm the it affected the desired results. And forecasting is not just about the gut feeling if you have data. Aid with forecasting based on factual and historical information. And like I said before, spotting those trends in data can be invaluable. Being able to adjust to a changing environment quickly could be what sets you apart from the competition. Use external data to add real-world context to decision making. When I talk about external data, we'll get into that in a minute, but you got to know where you stand compared to your peers. The two types of data that we see are internal data and external data. In internal data, such as sales transaction data, units, revenue, margin, etc., service data, department recovery rates, repair event cycle times, and so forth, and your marketing data, things in your CRM, location, demographics, purchase histories, all kinds of good information there. And of course, for human resources, tech efficiency, penetration levels, hours worked, so forth, is all calculated and consumed. The other type of data in decisions is external data. External data refers to any type of data that has been captured, processed, or provided from outside the company. According to Competence Center Corporate Data Quality, there are 4 types of external data. Open data is typically free, unstructured, or semi-structured data. U.S. government offers over 200,000 data sets from a variety of government agencies, such as census and weather data, all for free at data.gov. Shared data refers to data which is shared between companies within the same business ecosystem, OEM to dealer, supplier and OEM, etc. Social media data is becoming more and more prevalent in big data society these days. That data is referring to the data shared by users of platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, etc. External data is so beneficial that there are businesses built around gathering this data, consolidating it, cleaning it up, and packaging it for other companies to use for a price. Things like statistics from surveys, questionnaires, and research. Both kinds of data, internal and external, are very helpful. The internal data helps you run your dealership and optimize your operations. And it's crucial to have a focus on that internal data. And once you've got a good focus on the internal data, external data becomes very helpful. External data helps you better understand your customer base and the competitive landscape. And as promised, Jason Krantz is going to be joining us here in just a second. With over 10 years of business analytics, data science, and strategic leadership experience in public and private equity-owned businesses, Jason specializes in creating award-winning analytic strategies, capabilities, team cultures, and solutions that drive tangible revenue improvements. He also created the RV industry's first local market retail forecasting offering, which is endorsed by the RVDA. And today we'll be discussing market share and the value of this very important metric.
All right, thank you very much, Don. Appreciate it. One of the single most important metrics that you can pay attention to really contextualize your performance to your peer group is market share. And so in this presentation, we're going to go through what we see as one of the most important external data sources and really core management metrics that you should be paying attention to managing your business going forward. So kind of just to set the foundation here is it's good to define what is market share. And in its simplest terms, market share is the portion of the market that's controlled by a particular company or product. Within the context of the RV industry, there's going to be 2 main ways that we can view this. The first one is unit market share. But really, we prefer that organizations look at the revenue market share. And the reason for this is because, as we all know, a travel trailer unit is a little bit different than a high-end Class A unit. And revenue is a great way to capture that market share effectively. Unit is not a unit all the time. But really, one of the benefits of kind of taking a market share approach and really contextualizing it appropriately is getting an accurate assessment of how you are doing within your local market. When we define local market, we'll go into more details later on. But this is really getting into what is your addressable market and really what is your share within your local competitive market. One of the key questions is, why is market share important? And really, this is a fundamental analysis to understand the various things that are driving not only your business, but your market. And it's a great way too to identify who is winning and losing. One of the core themes is, as we all know, if your business is up 10% and the rest of the market is up 10%, well, you've risen with everybody else, but it's really good to segment who is winning and losing. And really the strategic relevance of this is kind of as I implied in my earlier comments. It is quite possibly the single best benchmarking metric that you have available to compare your performance to your peer group. And why is that? It's because it is completely impartial. It doesn't care how it's a very clean definition, but it is impartial to your perspective. And really, it impacts all companies equally. Another major important, as I mentioned, factor is that it contextualizes your growth versus the market. As I said before, a rising tide does not raise all dealerships equally. Some will go more, some will go less. This metric tells you exactly how you are riding that wave, or if you're growing faster or slower. It is also a key indicator of market competitiveness. What do we mean by this is that how concentrated is your local market in certain dealers? Is it dominated by one or two big dealers that maybe have 80% market share? Or is the market share evenly spread between a cohort of dealers? Market share will tell you this. Perhaps most importantly, in my mind, is market share clearly highlights trends in customer selections and really what they're desiring in your local market. As an example of this, there's a dealer that we work with that is very prominent in Class A, and they were losing market share. And as we dug into the numbers, they discovered that's actually because their market was shifting to travel trailer. Things like that, the market share metrics and things that the analytics that support that bring clarity to these consumer preferences. And perhaps most importantly, it's a reliable metric to assess strategy and implementation effectiveness, meaning if you're growing faster than the market, it's likely because of some component of your strategy that you created and more importantly are executing on to perform better than your peer group. So I like stories. And I think that this is a fictional story, but it's one I think a lot of you will be able to relate to. So as we look at this, let's just say your historical growth, for argument's sake, is 5%. Now let's say over the past year, your performance has been 10%. Now within the bounds of your universe, your world, you are doing extremely well. Normally growing at 5% and you're at 10%. So you're feeling great. Now, what if we add an additional piece of context here? We add in market growth. Now, what if your local competitive set had grown 25%? How does your performance look now? As we look at this, from your perspective, you're growing faster than you've ever grown or typically grow. So you feel very good about this. But then when we add in the perspective of market, you can see that you've actually grown in this fictional situation slower than your peer group. And as a result, you have definitively lost market share. Now, in these situations, again, this is a fictional illustration and the opposite could be true. You could be growing faster than the market. But this is a sample story of how market share can add incredibly valuable context to your view of your world, your dealership, and your local market. And really, I think that this is the most important slide in this entire presentation because it takes that concept. And again, this is fictional data. This is a fictional dealer. But let's say that these are your sales trends over the past 5 years. Now, as you're looking at this, in this fictional example, 2020 was a blowout year. You're dominating it. Now, if we add in what your addressable market sales trends were, you can see that your market also had a very strong performing year. So now the next question is, what was your market share in each of those years? Well, as we do the math here, you can see that from 19 to 20, even though you had a very good year, you actually lost market share. Now, the natural question that comes from this is, well, Jason, I don't really care. I had a great year by all of my metrics. I'm really quite indifferent towards that. I don't know what that number actually means. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to walk you through the math to identify the dollar impact of that share loss. So walking it through step by step, what is the revenue impact of that 2020 share movement? So In 19, we had 6.7 points a share. And in 20, we had 5.8. So that represents a 0.9% market share loss in your addressable market. So now the revenue impact of that, using the 2020 number, we can see that in that middle column at the top of it, your market is $503 million. Again, fictional for illustrative purposes. And you lost 9 points a share. So that revenue delta that you left on the table as a result of the share loss was $4.5 million. And that's real money. So now what we're basically saying is that if you would have kept share level, the same level that you had in 2019, that 6.7%, you would have increased dealer revenues from the 29.2 that you actually had to 33.6 million, which represents a 15.5% increase. Now, again, this is a fictional example, but this is something virtually any dealer in the United States can actually walk through and calculate this math to figure out how much are you growing above or below market rate to figure out the impact of your share gain. So the other great part of understanding your market share is it enables you to figure out what is and is not working and or changing in your market. And the way that we do this is via root cause analysis. And with this, really what we're doing is we're combining, your business expertise, market understanding, and all the experience that you have, and then we're augmenting it with analytics and data and the analytical process. So really some of the core questions that in this example that we want to understand is, why did your share decrease in the most recent year? Now, again, with the market share, a lot of times you can actually dig into what is driving it, what dealers, what brands. Really, it's amazing how deep you can go with this. But really one of the bigger things is to understand, is this share shift temporary or something bigger? One of the common dealer conversations that is happening right now is inventory allocations and just the ability to get the products that are selling in your market. And this is a very common challenge. It transcends all markets. So one of the important things with the market share is to understand, is your share loss temporary as a result of an event like that? Or is it indicative of something that is much larger, and inventory is just a component of what is driving your long-term share gain or loss? And then most importantly, because these things do have very real financial impacts on your business, both top and bottom line, it is very useful to understand what the potential financial impact of if this share trend continues. For those where in most markets in the United States, there's been extremely profound share trends. And on a rolling 12-month basis, it is very important to understand, especially if you're looking at a sell event or something in the next 12 to 18 months, to understand what is the potential impact of that on the valuation of your business. And then finally, it's basically to just understand, what can the local share shift trends actually teach you? So naturally, this sounds like a lot, so we want to break it down to, how do you actually start? And the way we start this is by actually segmenting your local RV market. So geography is unquestionably the primary driver, and we're going to get into that in the next slide. But additionally, it's also good to segment your market by towable versus motorized. There's a lot of instances where somebody focuses primarily on towable, so they might not be able to address the motorized market or vice versa. And so really with all this, geography and product type being the main variables, these two come together to define the market you can actually capture. But as we talked about, the first step is to define your local market. How do we do that? How do we define your local market? The first thing we do is we look at the total addressable market. This is the entire potential market for your offering. It could be as big as you want, but for most dealers, they tend to look at this at a state level, or if you're on a state line, maybe a region, a multi-state region. So that's everything you could possibly sell anywhere with no concern for geography, really. But that's not realistic. So we have to now dial it into your serviceable and addressable market. These are the customers you can actually serve and reach. And as noted here, geography is the primary variable here. You might think that you can address a customer from 5 hours away, and maybe if you have something that's really unique, you can. But we've studied every single dealer in the United States, and for almost all of them, 90 to 95% of their sales will come from within a 60-minute drive time. That's very important. It's extremely important, the geography component of this. And finally, within your geography is the serviceable attainable market. This is the part of the market that you can actually capture with your product and service offering. So as we look at your serviceable addressable market, as I mentioned before, this is a visual representation of, this is a fictional dealer location, but a lot of dealers believe that a 50-mile radius is roughly the area that they're able to address. And that's this area right here, very common. In talking with many, many dealers, this almost always comes up as the stated addressable market area. What we found through our proprietary research is that the serviceable addressable market is really about 60 minutes. Now, again, there are exceptions to this. There are going to be, if you have a very specific model that somebody is willing to go across the country for, those are outliers. But for a vast majority of circumstances, especially in high population density areas and major metros, 60 minutes is about as far as people are willing to go. And the reason why this is important, the actual addressable market is usually about half as big area-wise than most dealers think. And this is a very significant factor as you're looking at the growth rate and competitive landscape and all these other variables that go into your market share equation. So as we look at kind of the key questions that going through all this can answer, there's really a couple key questions that that market share can help answer. That is, how big is your market and what is your share of it? Perhaps the most basic question that we can start with. But then really the next level question is, are you winning? Are you losing? Or are you just moving with your local market? There's nothing wrong with moving with your market, but it helps to bring clarity, because what it does is it helps illustrate if the strategies that you are creating and executing on are actually delivering the results that you want and we're hoping for. Another valuable perspective is, what categories are you winning or losing in? You know, if you're predominantly in high-end travel trailers, you might find that you're gaining share versus the low-end travel trailer segment. Again, market share and the data that is available can definitively answer these questions for you. What is the revenue impact of your share movement? This is one of the things that we do for dealers where, you know, if your market grew 7% and you grew 10, well, the market would inherently take you up to 7%. So what was the dollar impact of that incremental 3% growth above what the market did? And then really, as you look forward, a lot of what we talked about is historically speaking, but as you look forward, what trends are unfolding in your market? There's a lot of markets where what has been the norm over the past 10 to 15 years is not the norm anymore. There's new buyers coming in, there's new demographics, there's all these unfolding trends that buck the historical trend. And this is why it's really important to understand those trends that are unfolding in your local market so you can plan better. And really, it gets to this final question is, are there any product mix shifts? In many markets, there are. But then two, it's looking at, if you've got new players in your market, what percentage of your market are they taking? What products are they winning in? Are they taking your market share? Are they taking somebody else's market share? These are all key questions that you can answer by understanding your market share metrics. So as we look at this, we've covered a lot here, and there's some market share takeaways that I think are exceptionally important. Perhaps most importantly is that market share really needs to be a key management metric to track. The reason being, there's a lot of internal KPIs, but all of those are really designed towards winning in your local markets. And the only way you can know if you're winning in your local markets is by understanding your market share. So in my perspective, this absolutely has to be a key management metric to track. And getting back to the internal versus external debate, it's not to say that it's more important than internal metrics, but it's really one of those core metrics that will tell you if you might be hitting all of your internal metrics, but if that market share number is going down, it would suggest that others are doing things that maybe you should be paying attention to. So very strongly encourage everybody on this call to make this a key management metric, and really because it adds context to how you're performing versus your competition. Perhaps the best part is through statistical survey data, it's really accessible to all dealers. There's no restrictions on who can get this information. It's just if you are getting it, are you making the most of it and really doing the necessary analysis? The next piece of this is really define your market and segment it. And by this, we mean understand how big your addressable market is, where kind of that drive time radius is, understand who are those dealers that start to, within their drive time radius, start to encroach upon your territory, and get clarity on where the kind of the battlegrounds are, if you will, for customers. Again, know your share in key markets over time. This is really, really important. One of the things that we like to do is look at a rolling 12-month basis, your share trends over time. And the reason why that's important is because there's natural fluctuations. Like in the past 12 months, there's been a lot of unique challenges associated with inventory, product availability, consumer demand, all of these things. But when you contextualize kind of what's happened in the past 12 to 18 months versus your broader 5-year trend, it's going to bring a lot of clarity to how you are doing. One is your strategy delivering in the way that you need it to, but two, what tweaks might be needed. And so this metric brings clarity to that trend over time. And really, perhaps most importantly of all these takeaways is that it's essential to understand the size of your addressable market and your growth potential. Again, if you're looking at a sell event or anything like that, these can paint very compelling pictures. If you're showing consistent share gain in a growing market, that's a very compelling metric to share with others that are looking at your business. Perhaps most importantly of this entire thing, the one sentence, understanding this metric usually does have a tangible impact on the current and future performance and valuation of your business. So we've talked about all this, you're excited about it. What are some concrete next steps that you can take to actually understand your market share? First thing is understand how big your addressable market is. As a follow-up to this, we'll share with the community and the people on this call a tool that will do this for you in a couple seconds. It's something we've created specifically for RV dealers. And so understand how big your addressable market is. That's the geographical component, and then the sales trends that are within there. Understand what dealers are winning in your markets, just at the dealer level. Don't go any more complicated than that. What dealers are winning? And then the next extension of that is what products and price points are winning in your markets. Chances are, if you see a dealer that's winning, they're probably going to have specific products and price points that they're winning with too. And then understand your local market share over time. This one is incredibly important on a macro level to understand just the broader trends of your business and how you're doing relative to your peer group. One important consideration, most of you are aware of statistical surveys. Those last 3 bullets there, they do require a statistical survey license in order to get the market data. Even for states that don't disclose dealer detail, you can still figure out your market share within your market. It's just those last, the dealer question is tough to answer in certain states that don't disclose dealer detail. So I share that in the spirit of transparency.
All right, I think that's it. Jason, again, thank you for your time, and everybody have a wonderful day.